The Herta is a top meta erudition DPS. In this video, I'll go over how to build her to maximize her potential. Starting off with her kit, her skill does damage to adjacent enemies and applies 1 stack of interpretation. Interpretation is an effect or a stack that lets Herta do more damage the more stacks the enemy has. On her talent, it states that she can apply a maximum of 42 stacks onto the enemy, with each stack increasing her damage dealt by 8% on the primary target or the target that you're aiming at, right, the target that is in the center, and 4% on adjacent or secondary targets. At the start of the battle, she applies 25 stacks, which are prioritized onto the most elite level enemy, that being like the strongest enemy. These stacks are then reset every time she uses her enhanced skill, which does a tremendous amount of damage. Her enhanced skill is given to her whenever she uses her ultimate, which also advances her forward so that she can then use her enhanced skill right away. Onto her traces, her first trace makes it so that if an ally applies interpretation by attacking an enemy, Herta restores 3 energy for every enemy hit up to 5 times. She also gains 50% ice damage if her primary target, again that being the target that you're aiming at, has 42 stacks of interpretation. Her second trace gives 80% crit damage to all allies if there is another erudition character on the team. It also applies 1 more stack of interpretation up to 3 times to the target that currently has the most amount of interpretation stacks, and it also applies 2 additional stacks if the character is erudition when triggering the previous trace. Her last trace states that the Herta gains 1 stack of answer for every stack of interpretation applied throughout the battle, up to 99 stacks, and increases her ultimate damage by 1% for each stack. When unlocking these traces, you should prioritize the second trace I mentioned, then the first one, and then the third one. You should prioritize leveling up her skill, then her ultimate, and then her talent. In conclusion, the Herta is an erudition character that does a tremendous amount of damage on her enhanced skill, especially when you have another erudition character on the team. This is because having another erudition character gets her more energy, because her trace allows for erudition characters to apply more stacks of interpretation onto the enemy, which, like I said, gives the Herta more ultimate energy as well as more ultimate damage. Having more and faster interpretation stacks also lets her do more DPS, since she's going to be getting out those enhanced skills faster and stronger, which is where the majority of her damage comes from. For her cones, obviously her signature light cone is her best in slot. It gives her crit rate, which is really nice considering she already gets 80% crit damage from her passive, and she does more skill and ultimate damage. She also gets another skill point after using her ultimate, which is incredibly synergistic considering her ultimate advances her forward and enhances her skill right away. For an alternative, the standard 5-star light cone, Night on the Milky Way, that you get from the standard banner is pretty good, although this one is a bit conditional since it does best in pure fiction because she needs enemies that she can constantly weakness break. Another good alternative would be the 5-star erudition light cone from the Herta shop, Eternal Calculus. Just like the previous light cone, this light cone is best used in pure fiction. Another alternative would be the 4-star light cone, Today is Another Peaceful Day. This light cone is her best alternative, better than the other 5 stars if you have it at super in position 5, and it can be used at its max potential in any game mode, unlike the other alternatives. For her relics, the Scholar of Erudition set is her best in slot, with the Hunter of Glacial Forest being her best alternative. If you can't get a full set for either of these, a combination of 2-piece sets that offer either attack percentage or ice damage would be her best alternative sets. For her chest, you're going to want crit rate. For her feet, you can go for speed or attack percentage. For her planar sphere, she wants ice damage, and for her link rope, she wants attack percentage. For her teams, she's going to want at least 1 erudition character. As of right now, Anaxa would be her best in slot since he can attack multiple times in 1 turn. He also gives her 50% damage dealt and does a considerable amount of sub DPS damage. Next in slot would be Jade, since she also does a good amount of damage and can do follow-up attacks, which means more interpretation stacks. Any other erudition character after them two would give you similar results. Little Herta or just regular Herta is decent. Argenti is also decent. Himeko is a bit meh since her skill only attacks adjacent enemies and her damage is really bad. Jinju Wang is slightly better, but again, it's not much of a difference. And then for her supports, Robin is good, Sunday is good, Tribi is good. Those 3 are really all just interchangeable and on par with being the best, but Ruan Mei or Remembrance MC are also really good alternatives. Another decent alternative would be Ting Yun, I guess, as a good 4-star budget version, since she wouldn't be bad, since she's skill point friendly, and the Herta would also like the energy from her ultimate. For sustainers, any sustainer that can do multiple attacks, hit multiple opponents, and is skill point friendly is good because they can apply more interpretation stacks, and because the Herta typically has skill point hungry teams. For example, Hyacinth, as of right now, is her best in slot support since Little Ika can attack multiple times at the cost of 0 skill points, since Little Ika only does his attacks whenever using Hyacinth's ultimate. Okay, so the way you want to use the Herta, like I said, she's very skill point hungry, so you're going to want to be very skill point conscious, and then so are her teammates. Her teammates are also very skill point hungry, so you're going to want to be even more skill point conscious. Here, I'm just going to summon Little Ika so that I can sustain reliably. I'm actually going to ult with Hyacinth because, again, Hyacinth is her best in slot sustainer, since Little Ika is able to attack multiple times consistently, which applies more interpretation stacks than your average sustainer. Here, I'm just going to basic attack for more skill points. Sunday is actually a blessing here because he's very skill point positive, so he helps out a lot with that skill point hungry issue. And then Anaxa, again, he's the erudition character. He's going to be applying a lot of interpretation stacks because he's an erudition character and because he attacks twice. So for example, if I were to use my skill here, I would apply 1 to him, 1 to him, and then I would apply 4 if I was using your typical erudition character. But because I'm going to use my skill on this enemy with 5 weakness implants and with this little green star here, it's actually going to make it so that Anaxa attacks twice. So now I'm getting double the amount of interpretation stacks for only 1 skill point. And then here, I'm just going to wait for the Herta to get her ultimate. Okay, well, there you go, that was fast. She can ultimate. I'm actually just going to use... yeah, I don't need to sustain. The Rika is gonna apply more interpretation, and then because the elite boss, right, the highest level enemy is at 42, I should skill here, but that resistance from Pollux is looking very annoying. So I'm just gonna so now that the resistance is gone, now I'll use my enhanced skill point, and then boom, 287k, pretty decent. After this, again, well, yeah, I'm just gonna apply more interpretation stacks here. Yeah, I'll sustain with Hyacinth. Only have 1 skill point, but that's fine. Sunday is going to advance Herta, and then the Herta, I'm just going to use a skill, a basic attack so that I can get more skill points. Hyacinth's ultimate, more sustaining, more sub DPS damage, but most importantly, more interpretation stacks. Up there, basic attack, bounce, just apply as many interpretation stacks as possible. And so that's pretty much all of Herta's gameplay. Her kit isn't really that complex. It looks like a lot, but all it really is just being skill point conscious, applying a lot of interpretation stacks, and just doing an immense amount of damage, 400k. In conclusion, the Herta is without a doubt the best DPS in the game as of right now. She outscales Castoris, Medei, Aglaia by more than 50%. Though she's a bit skill point hungry, all she needs is really any erudition character, an up-to-date support, and sustainer to outscale the majority of characters in the game. Whether you should pull for her is very subjective, but in my opinion, you should only pull for her if you don't have an up-to-date DPS, and if you either don't care for future characters, or if you do but have savings for those characters, considering that the next batch of characters we're gonna get are gonna be part of the Fate collab and Feinen, who are without a doubt going to be on par with the meta. Though with the power creep in this game, summoning on a character for the sake of meta is optimistic at best and foolish at worst. I'd say that as long as your current characters are viable and you think they're fun, you shouldn't summon on the Herta unless you just like her independent of her meta capabilities. That is to say, I would only recommend you summon on the Herta if you see yourself enjoying her even after she's fallen off the meta.